Venezuela's ousted President Nicolas Maduro is expected to appear at a New York City court on Monday to face drug and weapons charges. The U.S. military seized Maduro and his wife in an operation early on Saturday morning in Caracas. The White House is now ramping up pressure on Venezuela's interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, after initially saying the U.S. would run the country for an unspecified period.
The U.S. military strikes damaged several buildings, including this apartment complex in the Venezuelan coastal state of La Guaira, just north of the capital, Caracas, where special forces captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Wilman Gonzalez lost his aunt in the attacks.
We were sleeping, and I imagine the projectile passed through here. It fell on top of my aunt. We took her alive to the hospital, and they gave her oxygen, but there was nothing they could do.
Gonzalez says he almost lost an eye and had to get stitches. His neighbor, Robinson Dominguez, says the blasts were frightening, but he's hopeful good will come out of all of this.
I think that after these ashes, something great will come, something prettier, a Venezuela with a new awakening.
Nicolas Maduro arrived in New York shackled and under heavy guard. The deposed Venezuelan leader is facing various federal charges in the U.S., including narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, and possession of machine guns. He wishes officers with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, before he and his wife are taken to the Brooklyn detention facility where they will await trial. After more than a decade imposing his repressive rule on Venezuela, Maduro was sworn in for a third term earlier this year, after an election he was widely accused of stealing. And while Maduro may be gone, his government remains in power, and so does Venezuela's military. In a televised address, it qualified his capture as a kidnapping and demanded his return, warning others,
if today it was against Venezuela, tomorrow it could be against any state or any country.
Venezuela's Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, also struck a defiant tone after she was sworn in as interim president, saying Maduro remains the only true leader of Venezuela. In an interview with a U.S. magazine, Donald Trump said she had better fall in line and help the U.S. run Venezuela and its oil deposits, saying if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro. With Venezuela, Trump has shown he's prepared to follow through on his threats. People here hope the current situation doesn't escalate again beyond a war of words.
And let's bring in Phil Gunson. He is a senior analyst at the International Crisis Group in Caracas. Phil, it's good to have you with us. Now, the vice president officially succeeding Maduro, the military getting behind her. Delcy Rodriguez is actually a Maduro loyalist. So what will change, if at all?
That's one of the big questions, of course. Delcy Rodriguez is politically totally aligned with Maduro. She has been part of the upper echelons of the regime for a very long time. And everything else in the country, or the institutions, everything, the entire structure of government remains exactly the same. The only person missing, of course, is President Maduro himself. Now, President Trump says that that won't matter because from now on, the United States is going to be calling the shots. And if the Venezuelan government doesn't do as it's told, then there will be consequences.
I'm just wondering, though, what's the biggest risk for instability in the country right now?
The biggest fear that we've always had is that, ironically, that the United States might succeed in its aim of splitting the Venezuelan armed forces in such a way that part of the armed forces would rebel against Maduro and throw him out. It doesn't look as if that's going to happen at the moment. The reason why we were fearful of that outcome is because that could, under certain circumstances, trigger beginnings of a civil war, some kind of a possibly protracted low-intensity warfare within the country. And I think that's one of the reasons why the US pulled back from its insistence on removing the whole government and went just for kidnapping the president and taking him off as they see it to face justice.
So we're seeing a bit of consensus with the military, but what about the general public? We've seen thousands attended a march through the capital, Caracas, calling for the release of Maduro and his wife. Is that reflective of the general public's mood?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know, these marches are organized by the government, and quite often they're mainly comprised of public employees who don't really have a choice as to whether they go or not. The mood here has been very, very quiet. I mean, literally quiet. Almost no noise. The city feels empty. People have not gone onto the streets. Of course, people are nervous about celebrating, about expressing support for the opposition. But it was clear from the election of July of 2024, which Maduro lost badly, refused to recognize, that most Venezuelans want to see the back of Maduro. Their doubt now is, well, what does it matter if he's gone and the rest of the government is left behind?
I'm just curious as to if there is a credible pathway that Venezuelans, that the public would trust at this moment.
You know, Maria Corina Machado, who's the opposition leader, although she wasn't allowed to stand in the 2024 election, she has insisted that the result of that election must be respected, and that Edmundo Gonzalez, the opposition candidate who clearly won, must be inaugurated. And this does not seem to be a viable proposition right now. The US, which Maria Corina Machado had counted on to install Edmundo Gonzalez in power, effectively, has drawn back, has pulled back from that sort of an outcome. And where do we go from here? The opposition alone doesn't seem to have anything with which to bargain, even if it were allowed back at the negotiating table.
Phil Gunson from Crisis Group speaking to us from Caracas. Many thanks for your time and insights.
Thank you.
Now, following the U.S. operation in Venezuela, neighbouring Colombia has been on high alert. Colombian security forces have been deployed at main border crossings with Venezuela. And the president there, Gustavo Petro, has described the U.S. capture of Maduro as an assault on the sovereignty of Latin America, warning of a potential humanitarian crisis with migrants pouring across the border from Venezuela. And we have DW's Felipe Abondano in Cucuta, a town on the border between Colombia and Venezuela, which has seen increased military presence, as we mentioned. Felipe, can you give us a picture of what the situation is like there at the border?
Hi, well, as you can see, the border has been militarized deeply. Nor Colombians or Venezuelans are accustomed to seeing tanks in this side of the region or in the border. The Colombian government has deployed 60,000 military soldiers to the region and is trying to keep safe 4 bridges that connect in this region, Colombia, with Venezuela. It was a calm day today. It's Sunday, so some people used to travel to Colombia to get groceries or to see relatives. But you can perceive the tension in the air. Some people are still expecting that something else is going to happen in Venezuela. They believe that this is not the end of the Chavismo in their country.
You talk about the fear of the political situation, but overall, how are they feeling about their country, about their state as individuals in that place, and about what's to come for the country?
Well, we managed to speak with several of them that they are crossing. Some were ending their vacations, and some others are traveling to stay in Colombia. They are really happy that the Maduro years are over. It has been 13 years of this dictatorship that had meant the human rights violations and the lack of liberty in Venezuela. But they are scared of what is going to happen now in their country. They don't see a leadership of the Chavismo as a good news, and they don't see this changing in the future.
Donald Trump has also sent a warning to Colombian President Gustavo Petro, who he blames for the country's cocaine production. Do you think Petro is worried that he could meet the same fate or similar fate to Maduro?
Well, Gustavo Petro said that he's accustomed to threats. Colombia has been suffering of this being the production market of the cocaine that the world is consuming for a long time. It has happened for a long time, and it has carried a lot of consequences for the country. And Gustavo Petro is still fighting against drug dealers. 60% of the drugs that are being decommissioned in the world has happened here in Colombia. But you have to take into account that this is a big market, and they managed to gather a lot of resources, so they managed to spread worldwide. Petro is not the only one that is afraid of any actions by the United States, but also Mexico and Chile. The president of Chile also said that if this happened in Venezuela, it can happen anywhere.
And what about the worries from Colombia about the potential of more Venezuelan refugees crossing over? What are they saying about that?
Well, Colombia has been friendly with foreigners, especially with Venezuelan migrants. What is really being like the point that they are afraid of is the actions that some armed groups that are here in the region can take to retaliate to the United States. They believe that maybe the ELN group or the FARC dissidents can take this moment to make military or terrorist actions to see how they are going to fight against colonialism. But this can happen in the border, and that's why the military of Colombia are being deployed. It's really hard to prevent any terrorist action in the side of Colombia.
DW's Felipe Abondano in the Colombian border town of Cucuta. Thank you for speaking to us.